Coming up next, a renowned 70s artist tells the story of a 1975 classic that went to #1 on several charts and has embodied every aspect of pop culture since it was released, from Wayne's World to Nightmare on Elm Street. It's coming up on Professor of Rock, presented by Zenni Eyewear. Hey, music junkies. Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. Now, we invite you up front to join our community of music celebration below. You can subscribe, hit that bell so you never miss out on our daily content. And you can also become a patron. Now, that helps us curate this great history, interviews, the stories of songs straight from the artists. It's really important work to continue the memories of these great songs. Now, today and going forward from time to time, we're going to go behind the greatest #2 hits of the rock era. Now, we talked about one just recently, Baker Street by Jerry Rafferty, should have been #1. But in 1976, the great Gary Wright would spend several weeks at #2, behind December 1963, Oh What a Night by the Four Seasons, and Disco Lady by Johnny Taylor. Gary would have to settle for the #2 spot on the Billboard Hot 100, but Dreamweaver did hit #1 on the Cashbox charts. Gary's very next single, Love is Alive, such a great song. It would unfortunately meet the same fate. It spent several weeks at #2 as well. But Dreamweaver has well outlasted its chart position. It's become a pop culture touchstone for decades, the use in so many different ways. Gary's going to discuss that in the segment. Here it is.
If somebody asked me back in 1975 if you think Dreamweaver should be a single, I'd say, no way.
I have just closed my eyes again, climbed aboard the Dreamweaver train.
Because there was nothing like that at the time with all those electronic sounds and the bass. Radio kept saying, and there's no guitars on this record, no guitar. So that was actually used as a marketing ploy, for them to say that, this was the first thing, and it actually helped. And you get all these stereo stores testing out their big speakers using Dreamweaver and stuff like that. So much so that Warner Brothers lost the masters. And I think, somebody borrowed it and never took it back to the warehouse where they keep this thing. Anyway, it was very fortunate that it worked out for me and it became, a huge hit.
I mean, not only was it #2 hit, but it's really stood the test of time. I mean, it's still listened to as much today as it was back then. I remember I was watching an episode of Saturday Night Live, and because my dad had listened to this record and I knew, oh, that's Gary Wright. And I remember my friends started discovering, because when the Wayne's World movie came out and the soundtrack came out, they were like, oh, what's that song playing when he's going into this thing? That's a cool song. And they liked it.
She's a babe.
On Toy Story 3, it was on that, and my kids got introduced to it.
Folks, if you want to step right this way.
The other interesting thing is I was reading somewhere that Wes Craven, the Nightmare on Elm Street theme for his movies, he took from that first part that was inspired by that first part. The
big chord. Yeah.
And I thought, wow, that's really interesting. Tell me about that legacy and what it means to you.
Oh, I feel extremely blessed that I was given the inspiration to have written the song. And that actually the writing of the title of the song came from a book that George had given me called God, God was the poem. And that was in a book of, I think, Songs of the Soul, written by Paramahansa Yogananda. I was just reading through one of the poems, the poem you just mentioned, God, 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 one night, and I came across this phrase that said, when at night my mind weaves dreams on that magic cloth, do I emboss the words God, 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 and I wrote the words Dreamweaver down. And I just had it in a little book, with my song title ideas, and was in the English countryside one day and opened that book, and I saw Dreamweaver, and I just wrote it in about an hour.
And leave tomorrow behind.
And then I was when I was recording the album, I was in the studio with David Foster, Jim Keltner, and myself. That was the rhythm section of Dreamweaver. And it was the last song to have been put on the album. I played it for David and Jim, and I said, I've got these 2 songs. One is called Empty Inside, and the other was called Dreamweaver. And I played them both, and David looked at me and said, Dreamweaver. I went, great, okay. And then he actually, it was his idea to make the shuffle, the boom, ba-doom, ba-doom, ba-doo-doo-doo. Not the line itself, but just the idea of making the song into a shuffle. And then I came up with that line. It was just something, like you said, it was an iconic kind of song that
clicked,
penetrated 4 generations of, you know.
You appreciate it was in Wayne's World, but you wanted to bring kind of the story back to it's a very spiritual because we're weaved together.
Yeah, it is a spiritual song. I mean, the actual song is about the consciousness of God getting us through our trials, and Dreamweaver, I believe, we can reach the morning light, you know, Dreamweaver. And that whole thing is about, that's what it is about. It's about the consciousness of God carrying you through the periods we go in our lives when we're tested severely, you know, and it shows the compassionate aspect, you know. The other things, like you said, Wayne's World, they were kind of like more superficial, like, oh, look, I've got this great girl and she's my Dreamweaver. And I get that a lot. I never allow my stuff to be used for any negative, you know, things like hardcore, you know, like negative lyrics. I always like to look for uplifting kind of things.
Oh, that's great.
That's important. The thing that was most, I think, healing for me and important for me was when I would get letters, emails from people saying, you know, I was about to end my life and I kept playing your record over and over again, and it really soothed me and helped me to change my mind. Yeah. And that, to me, I thought, you know, it's not the platinum records, it's not all the money, it's not all that stuff. I mean, that's all is nice, but it's the degree that you can move people and uplift them and help them in some meaningful way is what really matters. And I felt really blessed that God gave me that possibility or that opportunity in my lifetime to, you know, to be able to create music that would inspire people and help them. That's the whole important thing for me.
Help me through the night. Help me through the night.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Leave us a comment about Gary Wright and this beautiful song. Tell us about your memories that are connected to it. If you discovered it in the 70s or on Wayne's World. And to get Gary's music, you can click on our Amazon links below. If you like our content, we invite you to join our community, subscribe, hit the bell so you never miss out. You can also become an honorary patron to help us keep this music alive. It's very important. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends. See you next time.